Welcome to a new episode of Hashnode podcast. And today we have a special guest from the Hashnode team. Today we have Edidiong Asikpo, who is a front-end developer and a content creator. Edidiong is a software engineer from Nigeria and she currently works as a developer advocate at Hashnode. She writes technical articles on her blog about web development, blogging for developers, soft skills, and open source contributions. In 2019, she was one of the 40 people recognized by Facebook as an icon of change because of her impacts and strong contributions to building the technology ecosystem in Nigeria. Without further ado, let's welcome Edidiong.
Yay, thank you for having me, Catherine. It's so cool. I mean, I've definitely heard a couple of listened to a couple of podcasts, so it's really amazing to be here.
Yeah, so thank you for accepting this. It's my pleasure. So we can start if you want to tell something about yourself, whatever you want to mention yourself, if you want. If not, I can start asking questions.
Yeah, I think you've covered a general overview of who I am. So yeah, I think like you said, my name is Edidiong Asikpo. I know that might be hard for people to pronounce. So if you can't pronounce Edidiong, you could just call me Didi, or you learn how to pronounce Edidiong. Yeah, so I've definitely been into the tech space for quite some time. I mean, while I was still in school, up until the moment where I joined like tech space professionally. And I think it's definitely been like an interesting journey. I think it's a space where there's a lot of opportunities to learn, to grow, and to do like some awesome and fantastic things. So I would say I'm definitely just getting started. I can't wait to see what life would be like in the next few years.
Nice, nice. So let's start with the first question, which is about your career path. So what was
Yeah.
your career path, and how did you enter tech?
Okay, cool. So the interesting thing is, I feel like generally in life, when human beings are children, they have different career goals, right? And then as you
Yeah.
keep growing, it almost feels like everything is changing one after the other. So when I was like a child, I actually wanted to be a lawyer because I think I was quite stubborn and very argumentative. Like I never used to listen or agree with anybody, right? So whatever you said, I wouldn't just say yes or no or agree. I would want to know why you believe what she said, right? And if it doesn't sit right with me, I'll definitely argue that it's not cool, right? But me, as I grew up further, I switched into wanting to become a, a petrochemical engineer, right? So I could work in like the oil space. And that's what I had in mind while I was like still in like secondary school, which is like high school for a couple of other countries. Yeah, but like towards because in Nigeria there's this particular exams you need to write in order to enter college, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you need to like apply, choose the course you want to use, and then the school you want to enter as well. So while trying to do that, my father was like, "Hey, he doesn't think I should study petrochemical engineering. That he does not feel there are a lot of opportunities about it in the world and stuff." And he suggested I should study medicine and surgery. And I'm like, okay, hey, that's cool, but I don't want to do medicine and surgery because I hate drugs. Like I hate blood. I hate everything that has to do with
Same.
medicine. Like the smell of drugs will literally just kill me, to be
Yeah.
honest, right? And then I shared that with him, but like I feel like, well, I don't think that's all parents, but like African parents are a lot more strict than other parents in the world, right? So he was like, no, that I have to listen to him. And if you think about it, he was the one paying my school fees, right? So I didn't have any choice. So I was like, okay, yeah, cool, let's do this. So I basically applied to study medicine and surgery in that exams, right? So I wrote the exams, like did everything I was supposed to do, and then I passed, thankfully. And then boom, he came up and said no, that the school I chose was too far for me. I mean, because I was like quite young, that he would prefer for me to go to like a school that is like a big close. And the funny thing was that at that time, it was already too late to find another school that was still doing medicine and surgery at that moment because most of those exams were already over. So I had to start looking for another school that could just take me in so that I couldn't stay at home for like an entire year. And
Mm-hmm.
because that would mean I'd have to apply the next year, right? So I found this school which didn't have medicine and surgery but had microbiology. So microbiology is focused on it's focused on biology, right? But it could help you become better and eventually switch to um medicine and surgery. So that's actually how I applied to the school I eventually went to. But before and like I said, I didn't like medicine and surgery, and I also didn't like biology because I had like a bad interaction with the teacher while I was in high school. I mean, I just felt like he wasn't doing the right thing, and there was something about him that I didn't like. So because I didn't like him, kind of affected me and biology, right? I didn't also like biology as well, which is
Make
crazy.
sure, make sure.
Yeah. So when I went to school, right, I told the registrar. Registrar is pretty much the person who is in charge of like schoolwork and stuff. So I
Mm-hmm.
told her that hey, I wanted to switch to computer science. That I really don't want to do microbiology again, even though I wrote the exam for microbiology, right? And then she asked me why I wanted to do that, and then I shared that I didn't really like microbiology. And initially, the plan was just to spend 1 year in the school and eventually leave. But if I switched to computer science, that I was going to stay there for the 4 years. I mean, who would like that, right? It means you're going to keep a student for the whole academic session. So
Yeah.
she came on board, right? And then she created a new admission letter for me, which was now reflecting computer science instead of microbiology. And the funny thing
Awesome.
about that is I didn't know there was actually a course called computer science. I knew there was something called computer engineering, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know you could actually go to study computer science as a subject or stuff. So that was pretty much how I got into studying computer science. But I wouldn't say that was what got me into tech because, again, I still didn't feel like I was in the right place. A lot of things were hard to understand. I felt like the lecturers were not teaching me well. I mean, it was just like I was just basically trying to understand every single thing all the time. So the turning point for me was when I went for an industrial training. It's pretty much like an intern with one
Mm-hmm.
company, one computer-based company in in Nigeria, right? And then in the process, I got to learn about like Android development, got to meet a lot of interesting people in the developer community that were also as young as I was at that time. And I could see them doing like really amazing and fantastic things. And I'm like, okay, maybe this computer science I'm studying is not very bad, right? And like there could be like a lot of interesting things that could happen in like the tech ecosystem. So that was definitely what I would say that's definitely what made me like join tech or become active in the tech community because after I was done with that internship, I went back to school. A lot of things begin to like made more sense to me. What I couldn't understand before, I was able to understand them now. So I think going to that internship was the turning point for me, was the reason why I got into tech. Because if I did not, I really don't think I would have taken it seriously after I graduated and stuff. Yes, I think that's like the turning point and the exact moment that got me into tech.
Nice. Even if we know each other for a while now and we've been working together, I wasn't aware of your story. I didn't know you studied surgeries, medicine, stuff like that, and
Yeah.
microbiology. So this is an awesome story.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, regarding that internship, I don't know, having experience in the real world teaches you a lot
Mm-hmm.
more than staying in school, learning in school.
Exactly.
I had a similar journey, and I can definitely say working in a real world environment helps a lot. So
Yeah, it does.
now I would like to ask you what are or were some of the struggles you faced entering and working in tech. uh, I suppose it wasn't plain sailing and stuff like that, and maybe you had some struggles, or there are some issues in tech or stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, I've definitely had struggles, and I kind of feel like, I mean, when you become coming now, and you feel like, okay, hey, everybody already has everything figured out, but even while you're starting, and even where I am currently, I still have like struggles I have to like deal with most of the time. But to name a few, when I was getting into tech, I think just being able to like grasp everything was something hard for me. I know tech, I mean, I know that if you focus and like, oh, really focus and do what you have to do, you'll be able to understand. But I feel like we don't talk about this enough. It's actually not the easiest thing to know what to do. I feel like sometimes we make being in tech come off as something that's super easy. Yes, it's doable, it's achievable, but I mean, it could be super easy for some people, right? But then there are other people where it's not the easiest thing. You definitely need to like
Yeah.
put in more work to understand or like grasp a lot of things. So I would say that was it for me, and just realizing that it wasn't something that I could do one day and then go to rest, then eventually come and do like 1 week after, because I would literally forget the things that I learned previously. So the fact that I had to do this thing consistently, and like everybody had to always see me with my laptop all the time because they really didn't understand what I was doing. You probably think, okay, hey, Edidiong is watching movies, or Edidiong is not doing what she's supposed to do, like house chores, right? I mean, because I was still like super young at the time. So that mentality of having to fight that stereotype that maybe you're not doing something on serious on your laptop because people didn't really understand exactly what I was doing, what I was trying to achieve, right? So that was like something
Mm.
else as well. And I think the third thing would be, I mean, just being like a woman in tech, to be honest, because even while I studied computer science in school, we were only two girls out of men, like there were only two female people. That's like me and another friend of
Damn.
mine, and then the rest were like just men, right? So there's always people looking at you like, do you really know this thing? Are you really supposed to be here? I mean, just like dropping condescending comments here and there and all of that. So that has definitely, I think those would be like the top three things I really struggled with while trying to get into tech. But as of now, I think it's understanding exactly what you want to do, because I feel like there are a lot of like frameworks, programming languages, different things that come up every day, and most of the times I get overwhelmed with, okay, hey, do I have to learn this? Do I focus on this? Like, do I feel like there's still so much I need to learn, right? I feel like the more you try to understand, you realize that, okay, hey, you're getting better, but there's still like a ton of things you need to learn. So trying to find the balance between that is definitely something I still struggle with as of now.
Yeah, likewise, I still struggle with that stuff. And your answer was really awesome. It's really hard to learn this stuff in tech programming and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and it's even harder when you fight with stereotypes and
Yeah.
being a woman in tech and stuff like that. And I really hope things will change. And thank you
Yeah.
for highlighting this stuff. And before cutting off with the career in tech, would you do something differently? And if so, what would you do?
Hmm. What would I do differently? I think I would have. I mean, there were like a couple of times where I was like, "Hey, into tech," and then like for like a few weeks or so, just like, "Okay, I'm not doing this anymore." So I think I would have started a lot earlier. I mean, I discovered it, but then was I super interested in it at first? I wasn't, because maybe I think maybe the environment, or maybe it was just me. So if I knew about the opportunities of tech right now before, right, I think it would have definitely made me take it a lot more seriously. Because I feel like if I had taken it a lot more seriously, then maybe, I mean, you can't be too sure, but maybe I would have gotten like a lot more um further in my career. And then the next thing is putting myself out there. So when I started tech, I always felt like, maybe I don't really know a lot, so there's really no need to talk about it. There's really no need to maybe share something online, or accept to do this particular talk, or like do something that puts me out there, right? I was always definitely shy of like talking about things or doing anything generally. But then someone spoke to me and told me that, hey, it's actually very important to put yourself out there, regardless of what you think you know or you don't know. Because if I've been in tech for like 3 months, right? Yes, I don't
Yeah,
know a lot, but I know a lot more than someone who has been in tech for one day. And that information that I have can be useful to that person, right? So
for
it shouldn't
sure.
stop me. Yeah, it shouldn't stop me from still sharing that knowledge, regardless of, hey, being in tech for 3 months. So I think if and to be honest, putting yourself out there gives you like a lot of opportunities, right? Most times you don't have to apply for jobs. People just reach out to you to say, hey, I think I'd love you to join this company, right? And then you assess. It could be like joining the company, it could be writing an article, it could be recording a video. There's so many benefits that come from putting yourself out there. So one thing I would have done better earlier would have been like putting myself out there like a lot more from the very beginning, instead of waiting for like few years after, if I said, okay, let me try to do this. Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
one.
I fully agree with that. Even if it seems daunting, it's really great to put yourself out there because you can be the best if nobody knows about you.
Mhm. I
So
agree.
yeah, it's a really great thing to do. And Leslie, what would you advise someone starting in tech? Maybe this would be a bit repetitive, but still. So put yourself out there, or
So I think one major advice would be to start and be consistent, right? Most people have seen stuff about tech and then they're just like, is this something I can do? Would I know how to do it? It's like they're already like turning themselves off without even giving themselves that first step, without even trying out something, right? And then the people who eventually try it out would most likely have like issues at the beginning because, like I said earlier, it's not the easiest thing to do, right? And because of that, they will stop. So they're no longer becoming consistent. That can make you go off. So my advice would be start. Don't think about it too much. Just go ahead and start. And when you eventually start, try to stay consistent at it.
Great answers. I fully agree. Thank you. And now let's shift a bit to DevRel. How did you become a developer advocate, or what? How did you get attracted to it?
Yeah. So well, when I went for my internship, like I mentioned earlier, I got to meet like a couple of other young people who were running like GDG, that's Google Developer Groups, right? And then in the process, they were like hosting meetups where we come and talk about like various things about Google. People from like different states to come to that particular state to come and like teach us stuff and just like interact and communicate, right? So I believe that the community has definitely been a really strong part of my career. Like if I wasn't inspired by that community, then I wouldn't have like taken tech a lot more seriously. I wouldn't have decided to like volunteer to be part of that community. So because I know that the community was one of the reasons why I am where I am today, I decided to give back, right? In the process of putting myself out there, which could mean I was like writing more articles. I was like sharing knowledge about stuff. I was helping people review their article or explain certain code problems to them. And in the process of doing that, I mean, developer relations is pretty much, hey, knowing how to do software engineering, but then also building communities as well. So in the process of putting myself out there and like helping people, that was also me doing things around everywhere, right? And I discovered that this was something I actually enjoyed doing. I actually enjoyed helping people, talking about stuff, not because, hey, I wanted them to tell me thank you and stuff, because I knew that people also helped me as well. I knew that someone's article was very useful to me, someone's video was useful to me. A talk inspired me. Just seeing young people together do stuff inspired me, right? So the fact that I can do that thing as well and also inspire someone else is what makes developer advocacy interesting for me, and definitely what inspired me to join the developer advocacy ecosystem.
Nice, nice. So, do you see yourself going on this route, or going maybe back to software engineering?
I don't think I'll go back to software engineering full time. I think I definitely still love the fact that I can just like write code when I want to, and not that I have to. I don't think that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, it makes a lot
yeah.
of sense.
Yes, I still like that part. I still want to be able to like learn stuff and like maybe write an article about it or record a video, just like have conversations with people and still do software engineering, but not solely focused on doing software engineering. Maybe things might change in the future, right? Because
Of
we
course.
have different, yeah. But as of now, I don't think I'd want to change.
Amazing, amazing. So, in your opinion, what do you think are the best parts of developer advocacy, and what are the worst?
Yeah, so the best part for me would be the relationships you can build as a developer advocate, right? So you could be someone who knows like 10 or some software engineers in your country today, right? And then in like next 10 days, you know like 10 more in each, like in other different countries, because maybe you reach out to them to collaborate on something, or maybe you just like ask the question and then they responded. There's a lot of room to meet a lot of people and build a lot of relationships. And I feel like life becomes better, or like makes so much sense when you have like people that you can talk to and like communicate with. I mean, you're not just focused on work, but then you also have like friends that most likely become like family or become like really, really close to you or help
For
you
sure.
out. Like, yeah, just people that you can talk with, right? So I think that for me, that would be the first thing. Then the second thing would be that I get to give back, right? Because I was positively impacted by this. So the fact that I can help someone else makes me fulfilled, or like means a lot to me. Those are like the two good things. Then on the bad side, I feel like dev advocacy is very, very overwhelming. like extremely very overwhelming. A lot of people don't agree. A lot of people feel like, okay, hey, we're not really doing stuff, but we're doing a lot of so many things, right? I mean, we're like recording a podcast now, and then tomorrow we probably have to write an article. Then next tomorrow we probably have to write code, yeah, or maybe
Yeah.
try to figure out something about, like, to be honest, it's a lot, right? It's a lot of so many things, and most of the time that can get overwhelming because I mean, it's different when you're focused on one thing, right, and trying to be good at one thing, right? Let's say you're doing React, and every day you're
Yeah.
consistently doing writing stuff about React or like coding in React. It's more structured, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to someone else who is doing like a lot of other things. So like this the context switching is a lot of the power just went out. The context switching is a lot. You're like switching from doing this to doing that. So it can be very overwhelming most of the time.
Yeah, so I fully agree with your points. This is one of the things I struggle the most with the unstructured work. Like you said, one day you do something, in the next day you do something else, and I
Yeah.
think it's even harder on a small company where you wear a lot of different hats. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
in a bigger company, it's more structured. You have more
Yeah.
resources, more people. So yeah, I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
And going further, what do you think are the most important skills for a developer advocate?
I think the most important skill is I mean, I know a lot of people can be like introverts, right? Like, I mean, not being very open to communicating with people. And I think, I mean, even though I try to, I definitely, like, before I make that first step to talk to someone, I'm definitely always like, hey, should I do it? Should I not do it? Which I think it's human, but being a developer advocate means you have to collaborate with a lot of people, right? So one important skill I would say is being able to like still go ahead to try to reach out to people regardless of what their responses would be, right? So that's like I think it's putting yourself out there in like a different sense. So fine, you've not spoken with this person before, but you need to collaborate with this person on something in the future. So instead of being scared that they might not respond or maybe you might look awkward or something, I feel like just still being able to go ahead to do that thing regardless of how the outcome, like regardless of the outcome. And while you're trying to do that, communicating it in the right way, not coming off like, hey, you're doing them a favor by you people talking to each other or something, right? So ensuring that you're communicating that information or what you want with the person you're trying to reach out to in an effective way is extremely very important. I think for me that would be like one very important advice because that kind of collaborates that kind of like impacts other things. So if you can't easily collaborate with people, then it means that maybe you'll not be able to do like a video like you wanted to record, right? Or maybe a podcast you wanted to do. So that is like the vital thing, right? And then the other part is I mean, being able to like communicate effectively. It could be through writing, it could be through videos, it could be through podcasts, like whatever thing you want to focus on. I mean, you could also still do all as well, but it's important to be able to like pass your message effectively to the developer audience that you're interacting with. So I think those would be like the two important skills I think a developer advocate should have. And yeah, understanding how to code as well is important. I mean, it may not necessarily apply in all the jobs, but as someone who is interacting with developers can easily spot marketers because they don't really like marketing.
Yeah,
So you definitely need to know what it feels like to be a developer to be able to communicate with them a lot better. So yeah.
for sure, for sure. So communication is one of the essential skills. Actually, I learned a lot from your answer because I'm still new into this stuff, still trying to learn new things. So this interview is first of all useful for me because I learn a lot of stuff. Okay, putting developer advocacy aside, let's talk a
Yeah.
bit about open source. I've seen that you are advocating for open source. You did some
Mhm.
open source work and stuff like that. Contributing to open source is usually a daunting task for
Yeah.
beginners. So, could you tell us how did you start with open source?
Yeah, so I think so sometime when I was still in college, right? So I have this friend named Samson Goddy.
Yeah,
So he's like a really strong advocate of like open source. He was been talking about it, like saying this and saying that. And I was like, okay, what's really this thing about? Right. So I sent him a DM on Facebook. I think I was more active on Facebook at the time. I was like, hey, I'd love to go into open source contribution. What do you think I should do? So he recommended Google Summer of Code, right? Which basically connects people who are in the university with open source organizations, right? So you tend to contribute and then you get paid for those contributions. Yeah, so I had to, at the time I was into Android development. So I looked at open source organizations that had Android apps or needed contributors, right? And I found this one called Open Data Kit. And what they were doing was really interesting to me. So I decided to like give it a try. And thankfully that organization had issues specifically for beginners. So if you look through the issues page, you see like beginner friendly, good first
Yeah.
bug, all this kind of stuff. So I mean, I went to the beginner friendly side, but unknowingly, even though that was beginner friendly, it wasn't very, very beginner friendly. I'll tell you why. Because that issue had to do with regex, and we all know regex is a hard thing.
Damn. Yeah.
Yeah, and before I chose that, I didn't know any single thing about regex. Like I didn't even know what regex was or what it meant, how hard it was. I just saw something and I was like, okay, yeah, I think it's going to be this one. So it definitely took a lot longer than I imagined to understand what I was even trying to do before I eventually made the contribution. But when it got merged, I saw it was like one of the best feelings ever. Like when I got the notification via email that, hey, at Didi Codes, your pull request has been merged into the organization, I was like, okay, all right. I was like super, super excited because I mean, just the fact that the contribution I made would be used like thousands of developers who were already using the platform made me super excited. So that was how I got into open source contribution. And I mean, I didn't get accepted for Google Summer of Code, but then I was able to learn how to make my first contribution, how to write a proposal. And then I was also inspired to keep contributing to other open source organizations as time went by.
Nice, super nice answer and introduction to open source. Since you've been doing this open source thing for a while, I would like to ask you if contributing to open source is all about coding, or are there other areas as well, such as documentation or I don't know, something else?
Yeah, coding is not open source contribution is not just about coding. And I feel that's like a really strong stereotype that is affecting a lot of people and also preventing people from contributing to open source. Yes, there are a lot more core software engineers in the open source space, but you can literally do anything in the open source space. I mean, even program management can be done in the open source space. So you could like write, contribute to the documentation, you could help the community to design. There are like tons of things you can do. So no, it's not just for software engineers. And I think a very important space where I'd love to see a lot more people contribute to is in the documentation. GitHub recently carried out a survey asking people what their major issue was in like contribute either using an open source project or contributing to it. And the highest problem was bad or insufficient documentation. That's to show you that there are so many open source organizations that either don't have a documentation or have it, but it's not like up to date. So if we have a lot more technical writers or people who or developers who are like into blogging, contributing to the open source space, it will definitely help to solve that problem. And I think a lot of people don't contribute because they don't feel like writers can contribute as well. The stereotype of only people who code can contribute is like affecting a lot of people. So if we begin to talk more about trying to break that stereotype, then it means that there's a chance of getting more technical writers into the space. And then that would mean that the problem would be solved eventually.
Yeah, for sure. And I would also like to add, even if I don't have that much experience, that if you contribute to the documentation or anything else, it doesn't mean
Mhm.
it's of a lesser value or something like that.
Exactly.
It's equally important because each
Mhm.
piece of the puzzle is important. Um,
Exactly.
okay, Leslie, before finishing with the open source, what do you think? Is open source contribution for beginners or is more for advanced people?
I think it's for everyone. My first open source contribution was done when I was a beginner. And like I mentioned, I didn't have any clue about it until I completed the pull request. And I mean, that also gave me an opportunity to learn because this was someone who didn't know A about regex, but had to learn about it and like contribute. And these open source maintainers are absolutely very friendly and actually want you to get it right. So even if you don't get it right the first time, they would either share resources on what you can learn in order to improve that PR, or I mean, like, guide you on what to do. So it's for everybody, and I would actually recommend beginners to contribute to open source more, because I mean, it gives you a sense of working for a real life project. It's not just like a demo or a tutorial you're
Yeah.
trying to code. It's understanding what it feels like to code for a project that's being used by a lot of people, right? And that is actually what recruiters want. They want to know if you have experience with applications that people use. It's not just something you build to add on your, like, on your portfolio. I mean, not to make those sound less, because they can actually be really fantastic projects, but they want to see that you have a real life experience about something. I mean, even for the job I had at InterSwitch as a developer advocate, contributing to open source was one of the reasons why I got that job, right? I remember going for the interview, and then, I mean, I already passed the algorithm interview, right? So the second one was with the CIO, which you just get like a sense of who you are, like what you've done
Mm-hmm.
previously. So in my CV, he saw something about contributing to open source. I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then he asked me when last I contributed to open source. And thankfully, I actually made a contribution to open source that morning before going for the interview. So I was like, oh yeah, I actually did one before coming here. And I was like, oh, interesting. That I should tell him about it. I told him that here I was working with Wikipedia to upgrade their API documentation and also write sample codes for their APIs in Python. And it turned out that at that moment, the company was looking to improve their documentation and their APIs, right? So I pretty much said, oh, hey, I've done this thing before in a real life organization. So, I mean, if you don't
Yeah.
hire me, who else are you hiring? So this was me not having like a prior actual working experience, but I was able to tap into that through open source contributions, right? So without doing that, you probably see me as someone who had not done anything that had to do with people, like maybe working on a product or a project that other people were using. So I was able to get that through open source contribution as a beginner. So that's why I believe that it's open for everyone, but I absolutely encourage beginners to also give it a try as well.
That's an amazing story, and it really shows the power of contributing to open source, because you
Yeah.
can actually get real world experience even if you are not employed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one or two questions about blogging, and then we can call it a day. So I've seen
Okay.
that you have a blog, you're a technical writer. I really
Yeah.
enjoy reading your articles, but could you tell us how did your blog help you in your career or personally, if it did?
Yeah. It definitely helped me a lot. I mean, like, on so many levels and so many occasions. I feel like blogging, even though blogging is centered around sharing knowledge, right, and like sharing your experience with other people, it's all, I think something we don't talk about a lot is it also helps you get better, because in order for you to write something for somebody else to understand, it means you need to understand that thing first. And in order for you to understand that thing, it means you have to like carry out some research, right? So you're definitely making yourself better at that thing first before sharing that knowledge to others and making them better. So writing over time has definitely made me learn a lot more things that I wouldn't have if I didn't write. I've definitely like decided to write a article about something that I didn't have a clue about. I mean, I had some level of knowledge about it, but I had to
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of research before I could finish writing that article. And because of that, it meant that I became better at something that I didn't know previously, because I had to write an article. So that's one interesting thing that blogging has done for me. And then the other part is it gives me another opportunity to put myself out there, right? So it means that people now know that, oh, hey, Didi is into like blogging about this particular thing. And if there's ever an opportunity for maybe someone looking out for like bloggers in tech space, my name would most likely come out in like someone's name, because they know that I'm into that thing. So that's like assessing other ways, potential ways to make money. It could also mean getting like a job because someone likes an article you've written. So blogging has definitely helped me become like a better software engineer, become like a better developer advocate, and also giving me an opportunity to give back to the community, right? Which is something that's really important to me, because I used to read tons of articles to understand something. So if someone can read my own article and understand something, then it means a lot to me. And even if nobody does, maybe 1 year 6 months from now, I'll need that particular article to understand something,
Yeah.
right? And when I read it and understand, then my future self is happy about what my past self did. So yeah, I think there are like tons of other ways blogging has helped me, but I think those are like the major ways blogging has impacted my career.
As a big advocate for blogging, I really loved your answers, and I fully agree with it. So let's
Yeah.
say someone who's a beginner, never wrote in their life, wants to start a blog and write tech content. What would you advise that person?
Yeah, I would say the first thing you need to do is start. So, but before you start, I feel like a lot of people just jump right into writing, which is fine. But the first thing I would say is there's this technical writing course by Google that explains a lot of things, right? So, I mean, I've been writing for a couple of years before I took that course. But after taking that course, I still discovered a lot of things that I had no clue about, right? So, I would say the first thing you need to do is try to take that course because it opens you up to like so many things. Right now, you see a lot of people writing articles without introductions, like a quick summary of what the article is, right? They just
Yeah.
jump into, yeah, and that's like because they don't know that you're supposed to do that thing. And the reason why they don't know that because maybe they've not taken like a course or read a book or something. So previously, if you asked me this question like 2 years ago, I would have said start. But now the first thing I would say is take that technical writing course by Google and then start, right? So it's one thing to take a course. It's almost like coding. One thing to like watch a coding tutorial, but if you don't actually code, then it means that nothing entered. You actually still don't know how to code, right? So after taking that course, the next best thing you need to do is start. So you don't need to build your blog from scratch. Just quickly create a blog on Hashnode and then start writing. And then when you start writing, again, it goes back to being consistent at it. Don't write for one time in a year and then come back to write the next time. You need to consistently do it because it's definitely going to improve your writing skills and also help you become a better software engineer. Think of it this way: if you're a beginner who is trying to learn web development, yeah, if you're consistently learning and writing about it, I bet you'd be a lot more better than someone who is just learning it because as you're writing about it, you're really understanding things a lot more better. You're researching about certain things to be sure that you're passing the right information to people who are reading your articles. So that would make you, and you're also putting yourself out there as well. People now know that, hey, this person is into web development because they've been seeing you share content about web development. And if any opportunity comes up, your name would come up in the, like your name would be mentioned in the place or in the room, whatever that place is. So you could access opportunities from that and also reach out to like other people who are also learning how to get into web development could learn from your article as well. So there are tons and tons and tons of opportunities that you could get from blogging. So I would say just take that course. It doesn't take a lot of time. Once you're done with the course, then quickly spin up a blog with Hashnode and then start writing.
For sure, I did that course too, and it teaches you the fundamentals and
Mm-hmm.
the in some advanced concepts. Like you said, it's there are some articles that miss the fundamentals. Maybe
Yeah.
content-wise, they are very good, but the presentation or I don't know, missing some fundamental things makes it harder to for people to read it, and it misses
Mm-hmm.
on audience. And also, I've
Exactly.
seen that. You said you don't have to build your blog. You can start a blog on a blogging platform like Hashnode. But in the developer community, I've seen this idea that if you are an experienced developer or a senior developer or stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, you should build your blog. In my case, I don't fully agree with that because you
Yeah.
shouldn't you shouldn't neither use an existing blogging platform or build your blogging platform. It's all
Mm-hmm.
about everyone's needs. Some people want to do it, some people don't
True.
want. So, what are your thoughts about this idea that experienced developers should have their custom blog?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think it's always important to not force certain stereotypes on everybody because what works for this particular person might not work for the next. Like in my case, for instance, I've always wanted to build my own personal blog. Trust me, I have. I've tried it a couple of times, but I never had the time to finish it. And for every time where I stopped that project, it meant that I wasn't able to publish the articles I wanted to publish, right? So it was not just obstructing having my own blog, but obstructing me from sharing knowledge and also benefiting from the knowledge I was sharing at the same time. So the major thing for me was, hey, can I get a place where I can have like my own personal domain? Because I wanted to start reaping those SEO benefits. So I discovered Hashnode, and I realized I could do this thing I've been trying to do for like a really long time in like 2 minutes with Hashnode. So why wait till you can eventually find time, which you may not find, to build your own blog from scratch, when you can actually start doing something like in a couple of minutes and benefiting from it. So if your major intention is to like share knowledge, like connect with people, learn the process, then I would say start up your own blog by spinning up a quick blog on Hashnode. But if you would just want to learn how to build the blog for the purpose of learning, then fine, you can build a blog in the process, right? And if you have the time to build that blog, wait for it to finish before you start sharing the knowledge, then it's absolutely okay to do that. But I'll remind you that half, like almost every developer I know, don't finish all your side project. So what if this blog is among that side project you won't finish? So I think just to be on the safe side, spin up your blog with an interesting platform like Hashtag, where you can connect your domain to that blog. So if you ever want to leave, if you ever have time to finish up that interesting blog you're trying to build, then you still enjoy the benefits of the SEOs that has impacted your domain, right? Because you can just move it quickly. That's what I would say. So I don't think you need to build your own blog from scratch because you're an experienced developer. No, you could use a platform that already offers you this resources. Like, you don't have to worry about managing your blog. You don't have to worry about updating something. There's already someone updating all those things for you for free. So I really don't know, but in my opinion, I would say you don't have to. Just do what works for you and what meets your needs at that particular moment.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And in my case, I wanted to focus on writing articles as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, being able to use my custom domain. So instead of wasting time to add features, to fix bugs, to
Yeah.
deal with responsiveness and stuff like that, I can
Exactly.
focus on writing articles. So yeah, we'll close here. I want to thank you very, very, very much for taking part in this. I hope people will enjoy it. In my case, I enjoyed it a lot, and I also learned some stuff about you, about developer advocacy.
Yeah.
So it was really awesome. Thank you. And if you want to add something else or anything you want, you can feel free to do so.
No, I don't have anything specific to add. Just want to say thank you as well for having me. This was definitely an interesting conversation. I hope people find it useful when they listen to it.
Thank you very much.